Hello everyone, my name is Melissa and welcome to my channel that's all about quilting, cross stitch, and taking time to be creative. You can find me here or on Instagram as Under the Evening Star, and today I have 12 quilting projects to show you. These are all projects that I've searched around my sewing space to find all the projects that I've been working on or I've started since I moved to New Mexico from Kansas 2 years ago. And in my last video, I was watching it and I realized that I spoke very quickly when I said New Mexico, and it sounded like I had moved to another country, to Mexico. So I just wanted to clarify that I actually am in New Mexico, and we're enjoying super hot weather today and lots of wind. So join me and we'll go through some of the projects. The first one is called Off the Rail, and it's by Julie Herman from Jaybird Quilts. It's a version of a log cabin, and I chose to kind of follow her example with using some low volume prints here in the centers of these blocks, and then I chose to focus on red fabrics. So I have gotten all of my logs for the log cabins completely sewn. I've got a wonderful assortment of reds that I've collected for a long time. My mom gave me some. I really love Bonnie and Camille's reds, and I just went through my red stash and started cutting and sewing. For the center of my blocks, I'll be using several different prints. I have a red polka dot, I have a Bonnie and Camille's little red and pink hearts, a little floral, another version of a polka dot, and there may be a couple others in here, but we'll have some contrast with the low volume reds and the darker reds. I really tried when I was choosing my reds for my logs to choose a nice assortment of dark reds, medium reds. You can see here that there's some darker prints, and then I've got some that have more of a white background. You can see here some that there's another one, and some with that are more tone on tone, and some with some pretty noticeable prints. So I have a nice assortment. I thought it would add to the interest and keep your eyes kind of moving around all of that red. So that is Off the Rail by Jaybird Quilts, who is Julie Herman. And the size that I'm making is a twin, and it'll be about 68 by 81. So that's a quilt from Stash. The second quilt that I have to show you is one that I've been working on doing some hand stitching for. This pattern comes from Savor Each Stitch by Carolyn Friedlander, and this book is published by Lucky Spool. It's one of my favorite publishers of quilt books. I always love that in these books there's, I don't know, information to read. There's always maybe a little bit of a story or background on the quilts, and I really enjoy that. So the quilt that I'm making from this book is called Ariel Grove. And here's a beautiful picture of Carolyn's quilt. And here's another picture of it. I'll show one more. Here's another version of it. So I keep this quilt in a nice little cookie tin, and in fact I had a tin that was similar to this that held cookies that we got for Christmas one year when I was a kid, and I kept it to put, I don't know, I've had different things in it over the years. And this one I picked up at a little store in Lawrence, Kansas, downtown called, I think it's called Ombre Gems. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it. I think it's French, but it had cookies in it. And I wanted it specifically to keep some sewing projects in. So that's what this one is in. This project, it's pretty special to me. I picked out these fabrics and used some, I think it was Eileen's glue. I glue basted them down initially just to make sure that I had them in the right order that I wanted them in. And there's quite a few strips that I made. Then I took some time to hand stitch the circles. So let me pull one that I've done that you might be able to see. Here's a gray one that you might be able to see the stitching on. So you can see I stitched this about, I believe it's about 1/4 of an inch away from the edge. And then you do a needle turn technique where you turn this fabric under and it creates your seam allowance, and you can hand stitch right along there. So this is what it looks like when it's finished. So I've got so many colors, and I've completed that first strip that I showed you with the yellows, oranges, purples, aquas. I completed that one. And on the second strip, I have, let's see, down to here, completed. And I had these prepped to take on a trip to Tennessee to see my family. And my dad at the time had been in the hospital when I left with this, and I thought, okay, this will be perfect for me to sit with him. He was back home, and I thought I would stitch on these. And I can't remember now, I know I went to go visit, and then I want to say that he became ill and was in the hospital. And I know that when I left to go see my family and see him, I thought that I would be taking this to stitch on as he recuperated when he got out of the hospital. Well, it turned out that he didn't leave the hospital, and so I ended up staying there with my family for a while you know, family gathered for a funeral, and this was several years ago. But I remember stitching on this during that time, and it was pretty comforting. And I still pull it out on special days when it's his birthday, or it's in the summer around the time that he passed away. And I think of him a lot when I stitch on this. And I think it's appropriate because as I was putting it together to take with me to Tennessee, the intention was to spend time with him while I was stitching on it. So I still kind of feel like I am. So I haven't seen my family in probably 1.5 years because of all the lockdowns and travel restrictions, and I get to see them this summer. So I'll be taking this with me so I can stitch on it a little bit more while we're in Tennessee. So that is Ariel Grove. And the next one that I have is called Ombre Gems. And I can find my pattern that I downloaded, but I'm having trouble finding the pattern cover. So I pulled it up on my iPad so you could see it. So this pattern is by Emily Dennis of Quilty Love, and she made this with Vanessa Christensen's ombre fabric for Moda, and I just think it is so beautiful. So I have cut out all the pieces. There's lots of pieces to this, and I've gotten several blocks made. But I feel like I started this just a little bit before I moved from Kansas. So I was very careful about keeping all the pieces together. I have one tub that has all of the squares for this. And I think I put 2 blocks together after I moved here, but I think I just discovered that I missed these pieces on the blocks that I made since I've been here. Not very many, but it's one that you really have to concentrate on to make sure that you're getting them in the right spaces. So this is the magenta colorway, and then I have the persimmon finished, and then I have a hot pink. There's one whole block here, and then 2 halves. Then here's popsicle pink, and this is the one that I noticed that I am missing the center too, and I don't think that's the way it's supposed to be. I think this is the way it's supposed to be, so I may have to be doing a little seam ripping there. So that is Ombre Gems by Quilty Love that Emily Dennis owns. So love those fabrics. Just another one that I want to get to. It seems like I keep running into the same problem where I start a quilt and then I get really distracted and I have a hard time focusing on it, and then I put it to the side to pick up something that's a little bit easier to work on, and I need to get back to them. Okay, the next project I have to show you, I've barely started, but it is called Summer Moon, and it is by Carrie Nelson. This is published by Fat Quarter Shop, and I usually am not a huge fan of sampler blocks. What I found is that I really love to make the blocks, but I don't always love the arrangement. Sometimes I feel like they can look ununified. I don't know. There's something about a lot of sampler quilts that don't appeal to me, but this one really did. And the thing that I love about it is that it has a lot of negative space in between the blocks. The blocks come in 3 sizes, so I feel like there's a lot of visual interest. And I think it's just really easy to lay your eyes on that. So I had 2 friends of mine that we decided to work on this together, kind of an informal quilt along. And as soon as we decided to do that, our lives got really busy. One friend's job kept her super busy. I had another friend that went back to school to get her teaching degree, and we moved, so it's been a little slow going. But I did get this set of blocks done. Each of the blocks comes in 3 sizes. So here's one size. I think it's 9-inch, 6-inch, and 3 inches. The 3 inches, it's kind of a challenge. I had to make this one twice, but they were really fun, and I like the idea of making an assortment of different blocks. I feel like it'll be a real skill builder. So I chose 2 different Fat Quarter bundles to start with. And the first one I chose was Merryweather by Amy Gibson for Wyndham. And the second one was Early Bird by Kate Spain for Moda. And then I went through my stash and found some other fabrics that might work in with it. I always like to add a few other things that aren't in a Fat Quarter bundle just to give it some, I don't know, some unique quality, just kind of make it more of my own from my stash. So anyway, small start, 3 blocks, but it's a pretty start. So I'm excited about them all. When I was gathering all of these, I was just super excited again to sew on all of them. So we'll see where I restart these. The next project I'd like to show you is by Brimfield Awakening. I'd followed them on Instagram for quite a while, and they came to QuiltCon. So I was excited to go visit their booth and see their quilts and find a kit. I love English paper piecing. And so I was excited to pick up a kit of the paper pieces so that I could assemble these blocks. I also found Tilda fabrics, which I don't see them very often in the States. Here's kind of a little stack of fat quarters that I have, but I picked up 2 charm packs. And a lot of the pieces that I have basted already are from the charm packs. And I've separated them by how I would like to put them together and the colors that I think they'll go with. And I've used little Ziploc bags to kind of keep them organized. So I'm still working on assembling these. I did purchase the template set. They have some acrylic templates to make it a little bit easier to cut these out. And Paper Pieces is the company that has these, and they also have the paper pieces to do your English paper piecing with. So I am glue basting these. I think it goes by a little bit quicker. I love, love, love these fabrics. So I've always thought of English paper piecing, at least with the hexagons, as a project that you can kind of take with you anywhere. It's very portable. This project, the way that I'm doing the assortment of charm packs, and I'm limited on, you know, having a bunch of one fabric and doing it more like a scrappy style, I needed to kind of lay everything out and organize it how I wanted it to go together by color. And so that meant I had to be very careful about keeping things together. And I've been able to cut some of the fabrics and do some of the basting on the go, but I found that it goes a lot easier if I can concentrate on it a little bit more. So I'm finding a trend here is with my cross stitch and with some of these quilting projects is that I have things picked out that you really kind of need to concentrate on, or at least I do. And I have a hard time dedicating time that I'm not multitasking. And I see the need for that. And that could be a reason why I have so many starts and not as many finishes. So hopefully I can remedy that. So let's set that down. Number 6 is Modern Christmas Tree Quilt Block. And it's by Amy Smart. She has a tutorial on her blog. She also has a pattern that you can download, I think it's a PDF. I followed along on her blog. So here's an example of hers. Let's see if I can tilt that way. I love her color selections. And the reason I found out about this is my mom was making some tree runners for some of us girls in my family, and she was telling me about the block, and I loved it. And when I saw it, I thought, oh gosh, that would be a great way for me to use that Basic Gray fabric that I've been collecting. Basic Gray is a designer for Moda, and I love their Christmas fabrics. I feel like every year they come out with a line of different prints, and they all coordinate from one year to another, and you can mix and match them. So I took Amy Smart's tutorial and just mixed and matched a bunch of Basic Gray Christmas prints, tried to get a good contrast, a good mix of colors. And I have quite a few blocks made, more than these. I won't show you all of the blocks, but I think I may have thrown in a couple of other prints that I thought would mix in well, but it's mostly fat quarters that I have collected over the years. I thought it would make a great Christmas quilt. Amy has another pattern that you can purchase that uses that Christmas tree block, but she has it in different sizes, and she adds stars that are different sizes. And I think that's beautiful. I would love to do that pattern one day and do it to match the runner that my mom made for me. It has red polka dots. It's a brighter red, lots of bright red and white and green, and I think that'd be great to do something like that in another colorway. So I think it would mix really well. You know, you need several Christmas quilts out at Christmas time when you have lots of people in your family. I have 3 people in my family, so I think I could stand for at least 3 Christmas quilts. Number 7 is an Atkinson design pattern. A lot of you have seen the the Yellow Brick Road pattern that they designed. It's been around for a long time, and I've had the pattern for a long time, but I haven't actually made it. Well, I was watching Stitch On's one of their Facebook lives, and they showed this pattern, and it's called Mini Brick Road. Let's see if I can show you that. And you make it with charm packs, and it's supposed to be pretty quick and easy to put together, and it is. So I wanted to make something for my mom because she was making something for me. So I found some charm packs in my stash, and I think she probably gifted them to me at one time. And I can't remember the name of this fabric company. It's by Moda, I'm pretty sure. And it's a Christmas line, but I can't remember. It's not Primitive Gatherings. But it's very well known, and I can't think of what it's called off the top of my head. But instead of a runner, there are alternative directions for placemats. So I've made 4 placemats, and I think this is a very, very pretty, rich, traditional line of fabric, and I quilted it with just a serpentine stitch, and each of the placemats have a different back because I just pulled from my stash to make this. So there's another one. That one has a green back. There's that one. So the only thing that I have left to do on those is put a binding around it, and I've stalled out because I wasn't sure I had enough. I wanted to use the star fabric because it's dark. I think it would go really well, but I'm not sure I have enough to go around. And so I was kind of waiting to see, because I don't want to cut that up if I'm not going to use it. So I was going to measure very accurately. And if I needed to go get more fabric to go around the binding, I'll do that. So surely I'll be able to have time to finish that before Christmas. Be great if I could get it in the mail to her before Thanksgiving so that she can use it for the holidays this year. So that is Mini Brick Road. Number 8 is my gateway quilt. So this quilt is by Everyday Stitches. The ladies that own this company, this pattern design company, were friends from my quilt guild in the Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild. And they have this great pattern company. Here's another small version, or another colorway, I mean. And they have some really fun patterns. This quilt uses this ruler set, and it's called the Everyday Curve. And these pieces were very easy to cut out, and I've assembled a few blocks. I will say that they aren't hard blocks to make at all, but I don't know, I feel like I get really worried about this little part right here, that I'm not leaving enough seam allowance. And so I keep stopping and thinking, okay, am I doing this right? So I need to just keep going, because I know it'll get faster and easier, and it'll just go a lot smoother if I work on the blocks and keep going for a while to work through them, because I think a lot of times when you're learning like a new block or a new technique like a curve, you start doing it and you feel kind of uncomfortable, and you do a couple and you step away, and then a couple weeks later you come back to sew, and then you kind of have to go through that whole process again. So I think something new like this, I think it would be easier for me to just keep going and keep making the blocks. And I think you kind of get past that learning curve, that, you know, and being comfortable with quilting on a curve or doing something different, and you develop some muscle memory for it. So I think that's what I need to do. I'm not quite sure why I keep hesitating on it, but this fabric is Chickapee by Denise Schmidt. I've been hanging on to it for a really long time, and there's some really bright colors and some darker colors. Just really fun. It's kind of funny with this fabric. Up close, there are a lot of prints in it that I don't like super love, but she has such a knack for finding great color ways that just go together. They blend so well. And every quilt that I've ever seen with Chickapee, I have just absolutely loved. So I thought it was time to cut it up and sew something with it. And Gateway was that project. So I'm keeping this. All my pieces are cut, and I've got them in a little box that I picked up at Target. I think it's a gift box. I heard on Fat Quarter Shop that Kimberly does this, and it is actually a really nice way to see it on your shelf and know, okay, I know what's in that box, instead of just a random plastic bin that I don't have labeled. So I like this system because the blocks fit really well in it. So, okay, I believe we are on number 9, Sunday Morning Quilts. And this quilt comes from this book called Sunday Morning Quilts. And this book is by Amanda Jean Nyberg and Cheryl Arkison. A lot of the quilts in this book are very scrappy. And my friend Marilyn made this quilt that I'm going to show you. She finished piecing it at I think it was a day sewing retreat for the Kansas City Modern Quilt Guild. And she held up this quilt and it just took my breath away. It was a low volume quilt, and I had always thought of low volume fabrics as being black and white, mostly white with some, soft black print in the background. But her quilt was full of color, and it just sparkled, and it drew you in and made you want to come up and look at it closer so that you could see all of the colorful prints. And so I got to looking at my stash after I came home from that sewing day and realized that I didn't really have that many prints that you could call low volume prints that were colorful. And so for years now, I've been on the hunt for some really good low volume prints. And every time I go to a quilt store, I have my eye open. And so I have a little bit of a collection now. And instead of having a quilt that was completed from scraps, I've actually cut into fat quarters to get the fabrics for this quilt. So here is an example of the quilts in this book. And here's a few of the blocks that I've made so far. I love sewing these because I chain piece them, and I feel like it's like eating potato chips. It's just such an easy quilt to put together, straight seams, and lots and lots of different colorful prints. It's very scrappy, and I've been able to pick out fabrics that I absolutely love. And so it's kind of hard to stop. So what I've decided to do is have this quilt project to work on with my featherweight. And I have it sitting next to my Bernina. and I'm going to quilt or piece my gateway quilt on my Bernina because it takes a little more concentration, and then have Sunday morning quilts. Got it all ready to go in blocks, and have it set next to my featherweight so that I can just run in, sew a few of those up, and if I have time to go to the gateway quilt, I can. This is kind of like a nice appetizer, or if I don't have very long, I can just sew a few seams. So anyway, that's been really fun to work on. I really feel like I'm learning what I enjoy piecing and what things take some concentration. Some of those things I really feel like I need to schedule time for, to really focus on them. And then there are projects that you can do when you're tired late at night, or you just have a few minutes and you don't have to think. You know exactly what you do. It's been a repetitive block and you can sit down and just work on it. Number 10 is Meadowland. Meadowland is by Then Came June, who's Megan Buchanan, and her pattern I downloaded as a PDF. Here's a picture of it. She has an amazing sense of color. I love those colors together. What I ended up deciding to do with my Meadowland quilt is something that's not quite as modern as this, which I love this, but I wanted to use something in my stash. And this is a project that I started during the COVID lockdowns. We were at home, and I was like, I would like to have something at the end of all of this to show that I accomplished something to work on, to kind of take my mind off things. I was reading a lot of the news. The world was a hot mess, and I was able to come and concentrate on this. I've collected French General fabrics for years. My mom carried them in her quilt shop, and then when I would go visit her, I would stop at Hancock's at Paducah, and they had a couple of tables that were remnants and end of bolts. So I was able to dig through those and usually find, a couple of measures of fabric that were French General. And so for this quilt, I picked out pinks and reds and some grays. And then I just went to the local quilt shop here where I live and picked out a nice kind of tone on tone background to piece in it. So I pieced and I cut and pieced and sewed all of these together since we've been here, and I really, really love it. I don't have a design wall set up here yet, so I just hung this over my closet door, and it's really the first time I've gotten a really good chance to step back and really look at it. So anyway, that's kind of exciting to have a finish. It's not fully finished, but we count that as a finish in quilting. So I have to decide now if I would like to quilt it myself, or I have a friend that she started a quilting company, a long arm quilting company, and I have another friend that has had one for a while, so I could send it off to be quilted. My mom has a long arm, so she could quilt it. So I'm not quite sure what I'll do yet, but it's ready to be finished and quilted. Okay, we're ready for number 11. So number 11 is the Socialites quilt along that Fat Quarter Shop is I don't know if they're sponsoring it, they're hosting it. That's what it is. They're hosting it on their blog and their YouTube channel. Many different designers have contributed designs for the blocks, and there's 3 different sizes that you can choose from when you make these. I don't know how many I will end up making. I don't know if I have plans to do the whole quilt or not. I thought if anything, I could make a runner with some of the blocks, or I could put it on the back of another quilt, because I love the challenge of some of these pieced blocks, but I don't know if I want to do a whole quilt of them. So far I'm loving them, but they do take a little bit of time. So here's one. I chose Bonnie and Camille fabrics because they're my favorites. I have a few favorites. Bonnie and Camille definitely is a winner anytime. And so those are the few that I've made. Number 12 is a quilt along that I found out about at Stitch in Durango. Durango is not very far from where I live. It's about an hour drive. And I found a beautiful quilt hanging on their wall and asked about it. And they said, well, actually it's a quilt along. So again, I told you earlier that I am not always a huge fan of sampler quilts, but this is a sampler quilt. You'll see it here. It's called Piccadilly and it's by Whirligig Designs, and it's a sampler quilt, but I think I love this one because it also has lots and lots of white space around it. I love that there's some repetition of the flying geese, and then there's some a sprinkling of some of these plus blocks. And so I know that quite a few people will be making this. It's all with solids, which I like. I think it keeps it maybe a little more cohesive. But I'm not using all solids. So we pick up a kit of 2 blocks every month, and they picked out some great colors. But I decided I have quite a collection of some fabrics that are novelty fabrics. And I thought, oh, it'd be fun if I could just fussy cut some pieces for some of the blocks, just to add a cute little interest, because I love fussy cutting. And this is the first one that I did. It has a little Red Riding Hood and a deer and a rabbit, so cute. So this is the first block. And that same month, we got the fabric for this block. I added this little floral. I don't know if you can call that fussy cut, but I wanted to just add a little something. And this was for the next month. And these are some little, I think these may be maybe Cotton and Steel or Ruby Star. I'm not sure which company they were with when they printed this one, but I think that is who made that one. And then honestly, this one, it was kind of late and my air conditioning was out. We needed to update the air conditioning system. It was hot and I was kind of just wanting to get it done. And I wasn't sure I had anything that would match these colors or that I could cut into a triangle shape. So I did this one without fussy cutting. So I'll sprinkle in a few that I can't find just the right fabric for that aren't fussy cut. But I used this great little print. It's by Corey Yoder of Coriander Quilts, and she designs for Moda. So those are the 12 projects that I have worked on or started since I have moved to New Mexico. Believe me, I have quite a selection of other works in progress that are stashed in a closet in project bags that I do need to work on, but I thought that I would focus on a couple that I've started since I've moved here, maybe get some finishes done, and then start pulling from my older stash of WIPs. So anyway, thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to showing you some of my progress as the weeks go on. Hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.